Here's the thing nobody tells you about getting a second chance. It doesn't feel like relief. It doesn't feel like the universe handing you something back. It doesn't feel like the movie moment where the music swells and you just know that everything is going to be okay. It feels like standing at the edge of something very high and realizing the only way forward is to step off. That's what it felt like when I called her. That's what it felt like when she answered. That's what it's felt like every single day in the 6 weeks since that phone call, as Alexis Sterling has been carefully, methodically, with the full strategic intelligence she applies to every single thing in her life, slowly making her way back into mine. Not rushing, never rushing. That's not who she is, but moving, deliberately, like someone who has made a decision and intends to see it through. In part 1, I told you our story backwards. I started with the goodbye and walked you all the way to the beginning, to a coffee stain on a silk shirt and a conversation about the color blue, and a card placed in my hand like it was already mine. Now we go forward. Forward is harder. Forward doesn't have the comfort of already knowing how things turned out. Forward is the open door, the unanswered question, the held breath. Forward is terrifying. But I think it might also be everything. My name is Sophia, and this is what happened after she sent the book. I want to tell you about the phone call, the one that happened after I said the color conversation still isn't finished, and she said, no, it isn't. I want to tell you about it because it was one of the most important conversations of my life, and it looked like absolutely nothing from the outside. No grand setting, no candlelit restaurant, no rooftop with a view. Just me at my kitchen table in an old sweater with a cup of tea going cold beside me, and her, I found out later, sitting in the back of her parked car outside her building because she'd been about to go inside when I'd called, and she hadn't moved for 4 hours. 4 hours in the back of a parked car. Her driver, a man named Theo, who has worked for her for 11 years and has mastered the particular skill of being completely invisible when she needs him to be, apparently just sat up front and said nothing. Theo is someone I have a lot of respect for. We talked about everything, and I mean that in the literal sense. We actually talked about everything. We talked about her father, which she had never done before, not once in 5 years. She told me about the stroke and the dinner table and the men who circled like sharks. But she also told me about before that, about who he was before she became who she became, about how he used to take her to restaurants when she was small and always tipped 23% and explain exactly why, the same way every time, like the principle was important enough to repeat. 20% is adequate, the extra 3 is for the effort. I sat at my kitchen table and I thought about 17 dinners, about watching her tuck cash under the edge of the plate, about never asking. I wish I'd asked, I told her. You were being respectful, she said. You always gave me room. Maybe I gave you too much room. A pause, the kind that means someone is thinking about something real. Maybe, she said, and maybe I needed more room than was good for either of us. This is the thing about Alexis that had changed in the 6 months since the goodbye Tuesday. She was still precise, still controlled, still the woman who selected her words like tools for a specific job. But there was something in her willingness to say things like, maybe I needed more room than was good for either of us, that hadn't been there before. Like the goodbye had cost her something she hadn't been willing to spend until she spent it. "Why did you send the book now?" I asked, somewhere around hour 3. "What changed?" She was quiet for long enough that I knew the answer was going to be a real one. "I attended a funeral," she said. "An associate. We weren't friends, but he was my age. And at the service, his wife spoke about him for 20 minutes. And the only thing I could think about for all 20 minutes was what 20 minutes would look like for me." She paused. It was a very short list. I didn't say anything. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is just stay on the line. "I am very skilled at the life I have built," she said. "I am less skilled at letting it have a life in it." A life in it. "Alexis," I said. "Sophia, I need you to know something. I'm not interested in a version of this where I'm a project, where you've decided to let yourself want something, and I'm the something you've selected. I need you to understand that I'm a person with edges and inconveniences and feelings that don't file themselves neatly, and I'm not going to make myself smaller to fit into whatever space you have available." Sophia, that voice, the one that returned things to you. "I know," she said. "I've known for 5 years. You are the least small person I have ever met. And the fact that I spent 5 years asking you, indirectly, to be smaller than you are, is something I intend to spend a considerable amount of time correcting." "Okay," I said. "Okay," she said. We hung up sometime after midnight, and for the first time in 6 months, I didn't feel like a woman with love and nowhere to put it. I felt like a woman with love and a direction. Here's something they don't tell you about slow burn. The slow burn doesn't end when the people involved finally decide to try. It just changes shape. It becomes a different kind of slow. Less agonizing, more careful. Like two people who have learned the hard way that things worth having are also things worth being gentle with. Alexis and I spent week 2 being gentle with each other. She texted me on Monday morning. Not a good morning. She is not a good morning person, which I find deeply consistent with everything I know about her. She texted me a photograph, a small painting hanging in what looked like a very expensive hallway. Abstract, predominantly blue, with a line of deep green running through the lower third like a question being asked quietly. The text said, "Found this at an estate sale 3 years ago. Thought of you when I bought it. Thought of you most days after that, if I'm being accurate." I sat with that text for a long time. Then I texted back, "Where is it hanging?" "Outside my office. I see it every morning." I put my phone down, picked it up again, put it down, texted, "I'd like to see it in person sometime." Her response came in under 30 seconds, which for Alexis Sterling, a woman who has been known to take 3 days to respond to messages from city council members, was essentially instantaneous. "Tuesday, dinner. I'll send a car." Just like that. Like the last 6 months hadn't happened, like we were simply resuming something that had been put on pause, rather than something that had been deliberately, carefully ended. Except it wasn't the same, and we both knew it wasn't the same. Tuesday came. The car came. I got in, and when I arrived at the restaurant, a different one this time, not any of the places we'd gone before, somewhere new, somewhere that didn't have the weight of our history in its walls. She was already there, sitting at the table, facing the door, the way she always sat. She stood when I walked in, which was not something she had done before in all of our dinners. She stood, and she looked at me across the restaurant, and her expression was open, deliberately open, like she was choosing to let me see her face instead of what she usually put in front of it. That small choice, that tiny, enormous, voluntary thing. I crossed the restaurant and I sat down across from her, and she sat back down, and we looked at each other across the table. And there was none of the usual careful deflection, none of the architecture of polite distance she'd spent 5 years building between us. Just two women at a table. "You look well," she said. "You look nervous," I said. A pause, then, "I am nervous." I don't think I can fully explain what it meant to hear Alexis Sterling say those 3 words. This is a woman who once negotiated a territorial dispute between 2 rival operations while simultaneously managing a city council vote, and never, by all accounts, broke a sweat. And she sat across from me at a restaurant on a Tuesday and said, "I am nervous," like it was simply true, and she had decided that true things were worth saying. "Good," I said, "so am I." She almost smiled. I'd learned to catch those, the almost smiles, the almost laughs, the almost everythings she did instead of the full version. 5 years had made me fluent in her almosts. But this time, the almost went somewhere. This time, the corner of her mouth actually moved, actually committed. She smiled at me, really smiled. Small, careful, like she was trying it out and finding it fit. But real. I filed it away like something precious, like something I wanted to remember exactly as it was. We had dinner. We talked about the painting, about color theory, about a book she'd read recently that she disagreed with on 3 specific points and agreed with profoundly on a 4th. We talked about my work, about an artist I'd been championing for 2 years, who was finally getting the recognition that felt long overdue. We talked about small things and medium things, and carefully circled the large things, not because we were avoiding them, but because we were learning, I think, that you can get to the large things. You just don't have to run at them head first. Out. The car was waiting. She stood on the pavement. I stood beside her. "I want to do this again," she said, straightforward, no hedging. "So do I said. She nodded. Then she reached out and, very briefly, very quietly, touched my hand. Not a handshake, not a formal thing. Just the backs of her fingers against mine for 2, 3 seconds. Warm. Then she stepped back. "Thursday," she said. "I'll text you." And got into her own car and was gone. I stood on the pavement and I thought, 2 seconds. We're up from 0 to 2 seconds. At this rate, we'll be holding hands by 2027. And I laughed. Standing alone on a pavement at 10 p.m., it was the best I'd felt in months. I want to be honest with you about something. I have been telling you a love story, a careful, tender, painfully slow love story about two women finding their way back to each other. And that's true. That is what this is. But I would be leaving out half the picture if I didn't tell you about week 3. Because the thing about loving someone whose life contains the elements that Alexis's life contains is that those elements don't pause for the tender parts. The city doesn't stop moving. The Sterling name doesn't stop meaning what it means. Week 3. I got a visitor. I was at the gallery on a Wednesday afternoon, in the middle of cataloging a new acquisition, when a woman I had never seen before walked in. Not a patron. She had the particular quality of someone who was there with a purpose that had nothing to do with art. She was elegant, composed, the kind of composed that I was beginning to realize came standard in a certain world. She found me in the back room, which should have been impossible since the back room was not open to the public. She said, "My name is Celeste. I work for a business associate of Miss Sterling's. I was hoping to have a brief conversation." I put down my clipboard. "About what?" I said. "About the nature of your current relationship with her," she said, "and whether you fully understand what that relationship will require of you." I looked at this woman, Celeste, calm and expensive and utterly direct, and I felt a very specific thing, not fear, something sharper than fear, something that had teeth. "I think," I said, "that you should leave my gallery." "Miss Sophia, now, please." She looked at me for a long moment, assessing, filing away information. Then she nodded politely and left. I stood in my back room and breathed. Then I called Alexis. She answered on the second ring. "A woman named Celeste just came to my gallery," I said. The silence on the other end was approximately 2 seconds long. 2 seconds, flat, with no sound at all. Controlled anger. "Are you all right?" she said. "Fine." She was polite. I asked her to leave, and she left. "Who is she?" "She works for a man named Richard Harlow. He's a business associate." A pause. "Was a business associate. Is this going to be a problem?" "It's a complication," she said. "Not a problem. There's a difference." "Explain the difference to me." She did. Harlow had heard that Alexis's personal life was shifting, and Harlow was the kind of man who filed that information away as potential leverage. "He thinks I'm a weakness," I said. "He's wrong," Alexis said, immediately, no hesitation. "He's not entirely wrong," I said. "Alexis, if being with me puts you in a vulnerable position..." "Sophia," that voice. "Stop. I'm being practical. You're borrowing someone else's framing and applying it to yourself. Stop." A breath. "You are not a weakness. You are the reason the decisions I make are worth making." "That's a significant thing to say," I said. "Yes," she said, "it is. I've been practicing it for about 6 months." By the following Monday, Celeste had not returned. No black cars without plates. No more unexpected visitors. The particular atmospheric pressure that had settled over my week lifted, quietly and completely. Alexis didn't announce this. She simply texted me on Monday morning. Another photograph. This time of a small ceramic bowl she'd apparently bought at a market because it was, and I quote, "the exact color of your kitchen walls." I looked at the photograph of the ceramic bowl. I thought about her at a market. Alexis Sterling at a market, looking at ceramic bowls, thinking about my kitchen walls. I texted back, "Did you actually go to a market?" Marco goes. He sends me photos. I make selections. That's not the same thing. It achieves the same result. It absolutely does not. A long pause, then, "I'll go to the market." And she did. She sent me a photo of herself standing in front of a stall full of ceramic things, with the specific expression of someone doing something unfamiliar and committed to it fully, regardless. She looked slightly bewildered and completely dignified. I saved that photo immediately. She brought the bowl to dinner on Thursday. Set it on the table between us. "For your kitchen," she said. "You didn't have to." She gave me a look. "Thank you," I said. "It's beautiful. It's the right color." I touched the edge of it. The glaze was smooth, warm. The deep, soft blue-green of the walls I'd painted myself 2 years ago when I needed a project to put my hands to. "How did you know the color of my kitchen walls?" I said. She looked at me steadily. "I've been in your kitchen many times. You were usually there at night. The light is different." A beat. "I paid attention," she said. I looked at her across the bowl and the candle and the 5 years and the 6 months and all the room we'd given each other and all the space we'd crossed since. "Alexis," I said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to actually answer it. Not deflect, not give me the version that protects both of us. The actual answer." She folded her hands on the table, the gesture she made when she was settling in. "Ask," she said. "Is this something you want? Not something you've decided is the right thing to do or the logical next step. Something you want, the way you want things when you're not being strategic about it." The restaurant made its quiet sounds around us. Alexis looked at me, and she was quiet for long enough that I felt the full weight of it. "I have wanted this," she said finally, since approximately 45 minutes into a conversation about color theory at a charity auction 7 years ago. I went very still. "You told me it was 5 years," I said. "We were friendly for a year before I allowed it to become more than that," she said. "I spent that year trying to talk myself out of it. I wasn't successful." 7 years. She had been carrying this for 7 years. "You could have told me," I said. "I know," she said. "I'm telling you now." "Is that enough?" she said. And there it was, that genuine, undefended question underneath everything else. Is this enough? Is it too late? "Yes," I said. No pause, no deliberation. "It's enough." She breathed out, a small exhale, barely there, like she'd been holding something for a very long time and had just, quietly, set it down. Week 5 was a Sunday. Sundays are not Alexis's natural habitat, which is something I found out on a Sunday in week 5 when she showed up at my apartment at 10 in the morning with 2 coffees and the slightly lost expression of a person who usually works on Sundays and has taken a radical step. I opened the door and she was standing there in dark jeans and a dark gray sweater, not a blazer, not the full architecture of her professional presence, just a sweater. Her hair was down, which I had seen maybe 4 times in 7 years. I stared at her. "You look different," I said. "I took the day off," she said, like this was a normal thing, like she hadn't, by her own lieutenant's account, not taken a full day off in approximately 4 years. "Both coffees are for you if you need a minute," she said. I stepped back and let her in. She stood in my kitchen. In the kitchen with the blue-green walls that she had matched correctly from memory, with the ceramic bowl now sitting on the counter. And she looked around like she was recalibrating something. "You moved the table," she said, "3 months ago. It's better where you moved it. The light is better." I handed her back one of the coffees. She took it, and we stood in my kitchen on a Sunday morning, both of us slightly uncertain in the specific way that genuine things make you uncertain. And it was easy. That's what I keep coming back to when I think about that Sunday. After 7 years of almost, and 5 years of careful, and 6 months of apart, what we finally arrived at when we stopped managing it was easy. We spent the day doing nothing of any particular significance. She sat on my couch, on the left side, which did not escape me, and read while I worked. We got lunch from a place nearby. Nothing elegant, a small neighborhood spot with laminated menus and extremely good soup. She ate her soup with the same composure she brought to every meal at every restaurant, which delighted me more than it should have. We walked in the afternoon. No destination, just the city, which she navigated with the particular ease of someone who has known it at every level. She pointed out things I'd walked past 100 times without seeing. An architectural detail on a building from 1887, a mural on a side street that had been painted over 3 times and kept bleeding through. She paid attention to everything. She always had. That was one of the first things I'd noticed about her, 7 years ago at a charity auction. She paid attention in a room the way most people didn't. Not strategically, or not only strategically, like the world was interesting to her, like she was genuinely curious about the things it contained. I was one of the things it contained. Late in the afternoon, we were sitting in a small park that neither of us had been to before, in the comfortable silence that had become, over 5 weeks, our particular medium. And she said, "I need to tell you something. When I sent the book," she said, "I want you to know what I meant by it. I wasn't trying to open a door and see if you'd walk through it. I wasn't testing anything. I need you to know it wasn't strategy." "I know," I said. "I sent it because I missed you," she said, specifically, in the particular way that I had not missed anything before. Every day for 6 months I had your absence in my office, because I'd taken the painting down the week after the goodbye, and I couldn't put it back, and I couldn't throw it away. She paused. I missed you, and I had run out of ways to hold it without saying it. The painting, I said. You took it down? I couldn't look at it, she said. It was yours. It was something you bought because it reminded you of me. Which made it yours, she said simply. I thought about that painting, about her walking past it every morning for 3 years, about the week after the goodbye, her taking it down, the empty space on the wall every single morning since. Alexis, I said. Sophia. I reached out and I took her hand. Not a touch, not a brief contact. I took her hand properly, completely, and I held it. She looked down at our joined hands, then up at me, and her expression, the one I had been cataloging for 7 years, did something I had never seen it do before. It simply let go, not of me, of whatever she'd been holding in front of herself for so long. We sat there for a long time. When we finally walked back, it was getting dark. The city was doing its evening thing, lights coming on, the hum and shift of it changing register. At my door, she stopped, like she always had, the familiar geography of my doorstep. Except this time, I didn't wait. I didn't stand there holding the moment and hoping. I stepped forward and I kissed her. Brief, soft. The first honest thing either of us had done in approximately 7 years. When I stepped back, she looked at me with an expression that I am going to spend the rest of my life being grateful I got to see. Something so unguarded and so completely real that it remade the whole landscape of her face. 7 years, she said. I know, I said. We're slow. She laughed. Actually laughed. Full, complete. The sound I had heard maybe 3 times in our entire history and had filed away each time like treasure. Come to dinner on Tuesday, she said. On one condition, I said. She raised an eyebrow. We go somewhere with laminated menus. She looked at me for a long moment, then, I'll find somewhere with laminated menus. She walked back to the car. I stood in my doorway, the same doorway where she had once said, "This is the part where I have to let you go." And I watched her go. Except this time, she looked back. She looked back from the pavement just before she got in, and our eyes met across the space between us, the doorway and the curb and the evening and the 7 years. And she nodded. Not the final nod, not the resolved, decided, closed nod. The other one. The one that meant, I'll see you Tuesday. I smiled. She got in the car. And I closed the door and stood in my entryway, and this time, I cried. Completely, gratefully. The kind of crying that isn't sadness at all, but is the feeling of something you'd been holding so tightly for so long, finally releasing. It's week 6 now as I'm telling you this. She is still the head of the Sterling operation. The city is still what it is. Marco still calls me sometimes with information she hasn't chosen to share yet. Harlow has been quiet. The complications of her world don't evaporate because she's decided to live in it differently. But she is deciding to live in it differently. That's the thing. The painting is back on the wall. She told me on Thursday, very casually, as if it were a minor administrative update. The painting is back in the hallway where it belongs. And I said good, and she said yes, and we talked about something else entirely. But I sat with it all the way home. The painting is back on the wall. There is a version of this story where I tell you it has a neat ending, where everything that was hard becomes easy, and all the years of almost collapse into a single perfect moment, and that's where we fade to black. But that's not this story. This story is messier than that, and more true. This story is laminated menus and ceramic bowls, and a woman who shows up on a Sunday morning in a gray sweater because she took the day off. It's 4-hour phone calls and paintings leaning against walls, and fingerprint locks, and 23%, and the particular weight of a head on a shoulder for 4 seconds in a hospital waiting room that changed everything. It's slow, it's real, it's mine. Some things are worth the slow, worth every single almost. I told you at the start of part 1 that I was a woman with love and nowhere to put it. I was wrong. I just hadn't found the right Tuesday yet. If Sophia and Alexis got to you, if this story broke something loose in your chest, drop a comment below telling me which moment did it. Was it the Sunday morning in the gray sweater? The park bench? The 7 years? The painting going back on the wall? Tell me, I read every single one. And if you want part 3, Alexis Sterling still has something left to say, and I promise you it will happen in the most Alexis way imaginable. Like this video and comment the word Tuesday below. Subscribe, hit the bell. Part 1 is linked in the description if you haven't watched it yet. Until part 3, hold out for the person who takes the painting back off the wall and then hangs it back up right where it belongs.